Right, good afternoon or early evening or whatever one should call it at 6 o'clock of the day. I welcome to the European Parliament the Ombudsman of the Artsakh Republic, Ruben Melikyan, who today held a number of meetings in the European Parliament which were partly grouped into a presentation with parliamentary colleagues where he notably explained to us and to those beyond us the findings of his digging into massive human rights violations, not to say war crimes, or else atrocities committed by Azerbaijan during the April War in 2016. I think it is an extremely valuable moment to have the Ombudsman of Artsakh here, because this doesn't happen every day. When it happens, it is one of the rare moments that colleagues who are not concerned with Artsakh every day get an opportunity to receive first-hand information from the territory regarding things of pressing concern. And this is even more important if these concerns are as pressing as random killings, mutilations, torture, and other acts of crimes of war can be. I will pass on the floor to Ruben Melikyan straight away for him to be able to present the findings of his missions himself. And as soon as we're done with that, we can maybe turn to a discussion if there is time left. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Engel. It's an honor to me to be hosted in European Parliament in Strasbourg. Thank you for organizing this press conference here. For us, for Artsakh Republic citizens, it's very important to be heard by our European partners, taking into account the lack of Europe in Artsakh and lack of opportunities to speak on our human rights issues. My mandate is human rights, so I will not cover any political issue. And what I'm going to present today is a purely human rights perspective, and a human rights perspective of a country which is not recognized. But even if the country is not recognized, the people cannot be denied. And the people, and their human rights should be taken into account. We had very productive meetings today in European Parliament with members of European Parliament, and I presented my recent report on Azerbaijan's atrocities during 2016 April war. In particular, we emphasized the systemic nature of human rights violations during April war, and one of the signs of it was that about 90% of all citizens of Nagorno-Karabakh Republic, which fall under control of Azerbaijan, were either tortured or executed or mutilated. And that happened in all directions of the Azerbaijani aggression. In Talish village, which is one of the symbols of April War and April War atrocities, and all other directions of the aggression. I brought with me not only the public version of the report, but also the limited edition of the restricted edition, and we have all the materials and all the photographs and also personal information about each victim of human rights violations we talk about in our report. I need to say that this is a very alarming situation for human rights community, for Europe in general, because we cannot, because of the objective situation, cannot provide independent reports there, because there is nobody to report. And this is one of the consequences of lack of Europe in Artsakh. So what we are talking about is that this situation is closely connected with the general issue of engagement of Europe. I'm not talking about official engagement and direct engagement, but also, first of all, I'm talking about human rights defenders community, human rights activists, which are more specified, which are more specific for my office, in Artsakh, in conducting the day-by-day work, what they conduct in other parts of the world, in the countries which are as much dangerous as Nagorno-Karabakh and even more dangerous places in the world. And this is the place where we have lack of human rights organizations. This is very alarming because it makes people think that they can commit anything they wish, and it will be impossible to independently confirm that. One of the topics that I also discussed with members of European Parliament, as well as during my other visits with human rights community and so on, was the recent Lapshin's case, which is very concerning because we have a situation of attempt to silence free speech on Artsakh and to make movement to Artsakh dangerous for those who decide to go to Nagorno-Karabakh, to Artsakh. This is also a very concerning human rights issue, and it's not only Mr. Lapshin's issue, but also all those people who have been to Artsakh or decide to go to Artsakh. This is one of the topics that we discussed today with my colleagues. I also represented the ordinary and regular human rights issues, especially with my colleagues in human rights community. And Nagorno-Karabakh is a country which lives its day-by-day life. Nagorno-Karabakh ombudsman is an ombudsman who makes almost the same job as other human rights defenders in the other parts of the world. And we have the same problems, we have the same, we face the same obstacles, we face the same issues, and that's very important for me to discuss with my colleagues, especially with human rights community, the issues, the ways of resolving them, and so on. One thing is very important, that my principal perception of the situation is that the people of Nagorno-Karabakh is ready, and it showed it in multiple times, to be more engaged with Europe, to be more, to take more examples of European values. And I firmly believe, that they need to be given a chance. That's it for the preliminary speech. Thank you.
Thank you. It is indeed so that I also like to consider myself part of the human rights community in different circumstances, and since I do that within the European Union, I find it only logical that I should also do it in the neighborhood of the European Union. And it is indeed not logical that this House, the European Parliament, has adopted over the last years several resolutions calling for increased direct contacts with what is still called Karabakh, might be called after the 20th of February Artsakh, and that in fact we don't follow up on it. We just don't follow up on it. There are a few maniacs like myself who occasionally travel there on more or less official business, but the community of those who do that is small. The Special Representative of the European Union for the South Caucasus has, as far as I'm aware, never set foot on the territory of the Republic, which is strange in the sense that it is not the only internationally non-recognized state in the Caucasus, or is not the only de facto state, if I am allowed to use this expression once, around which the European Union doesn't recognize. There are two others, and to those we go, and with those we engage, and with those we try and develop and implement policy, but with Karabakh we don't. That is fundamentally, if only illogical, incoherent with not only policy with respect to other territories in the neighborhood that function roughly in the same circumstances of recognition or non-recognition, but is also not coherent with respect to our own decisions, parliamentary decisions that we take in this House, where we on the one hand call for closer ties, well, not closer ties in the sense of official closer ties, but interaction, direct contacts, by citizens, by academics, by NGOs, by ideally also political representatives, and then the territory is factually and practically sealed off, or we do as if it were totally sealed off to such contacts. That is not logical. We try to bridge those gaps at regular intervals. Today is one of them. It's not easy, as all of us know. Since the eastern neighbor of Karabakh is, to some in the European Union, slightly more relevant than Artsakh itself. What that can lead to has been proven by the receipt by one single Italian member of parliament who pocketed 2.4 million euros for a single pro-Azerbaijan resolution in the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, or in order to defeat one that would not have been particularly friendly to the country. These are, of course, means that neither Artsakh nor Armenia would want to use, leaving alone the fact that they couldn't use them for obvious material reasons, but they would also not want to use them. We here have to operate on the basis of conviction and not on the basis of payments. Which makes the commitment that we have, I believe, morally more convincing. Since we will have a little bit of time left with the small community that is present, we could possibly engage in a little dialogue for a few minutes, and then we would have to conclude. If not, we can also conclude straight away, but I take it that we don't have to.
Armenian Media Panorama AM. I have a question for you, Mr. Engel. Just a few days ago, we have witnessed another suppression of free speech in Azerbaijan, as you have mentioned. I want to draw your attention in the fact that this transfer was made with a heavy convoy with guns. How would you comment on this issue?
You're referring to the case of Mr. Lapshin?
Yes, of course. Yes. Sorry.
Look, when I saw the pictures, I went round and showed them to a number of colleagues, saying, "Who do you think is being extradited here?" Because it would look like at least one of the 9/11 attackers, at least, or something worse. And then when you say, "Well, it's in fact a blogger," you end up in stares of bewilderment, just like the whole story is in fact one that can only lead to bewilderment. I had been afraid at the very beginning that Azerbaijan had managed to get an international arrest warrant against the man, which manifestly is not the case. There seems to be an obscure convention that they used by requesting Belarus to arrest him and extradite him. Now, we know what sort of countries we're talking about. I mean, Azerbaijan needs no further qualification in terms of rule of law and Belarus is, is competing almost eye to eye. So we're talking about territories where I honestly don't want to spend my summer holidays, and where I won't. In Azerbaijan, most probably I couldn't, because I trust that in my case, they would more convincingly identify me than they did with Mr. Lapshin when he came with his Ukrainian passport, which had his first name in a slightly different version, and let him in. But also Belarus, I have to say, is probably going to become a territory for those that have been to Artsakh or will go to Artsakh, that they will in the future avoid. I had hoped that Belarus was on a different track. It seems that it's not. I also understand that there is a lot of geopolitical wrangling involved here. This is probably a case where Azerbaijan wants to prove something to Russia. At the same time, Belarus wants to prove something to Russia and was probably promised something by Azerbaijan in return. I'm even relatively convinced of that, because I can't but remember the case of Ramil Safarov a couple of years ago, when it is absolutely evident to me that massive promises of payment, and probably the payments themselves, were made to the Hungarian authorities around the Fidesz regime. And I call this a regime in full consciousness of what it means, because to me it is one. No Hungarian government had thought of extraditing Safarov before. They were all socialists. As soon as Fidesz came to power, they extradited. Let no one tell me that they were not paid for it. I'm absolutely convinced they were paid for it, and quite possibly in the stadium that Mr. Orban had erected to his own glory, or in the tram line that he had erected to his birthplace and his stadium to his own glory, we might find traces from the payments that Azerbaijan made in order to have Safarov extradited to Baku and afterwards glorified into a national hero. I mean, a country that does that, to me, has ceased to exist in the family of civilized mankind. That is simply so, and it cannot be expressed in any different manner. The Lapshin thing is most probably in the same vein. I hope that they will have remnants of decency in the treatment that they now reserve the man. To me, it is absolutely outrageous that somebody should be arrested somewhere on earth because of the fact that he has been to another place and written 2 or 3 lines on that other place. That is completely inconceivable. It is, of course, not compatible with our human rights standards, with our defense standards, with our extradition standards, with everything that goes with the guarantees of the freedom of the person. And I trust that we're going to uphold that. We will also try in the European Parliament to bring up this case, not so much as an Artsakh-related issue, but as an objective issue which concerns a massive deviation from the course of the rule of law by 2 states that the European Union entertains formal relations with in the framework of the Eastern Partnership. This does not make interaction with those countries any easier. And that is about the full story that I would have to communicate in this respect.
Can I just the second question, pass? What steps are being taken to boost direct contacts with Nagorno-Karabakh? Do you use any possible engagement in implementing projects in Nagorno-Karabakh?
Look, myself and a number of colleagues have some time ago directed a question at the European Commission asking them whether they intended to follow up on our resolutions and also on agreed policy of having direct contacts by precisely doing what you say. The answer that I got was as evasive as a number of responses from the European Commission occasionally are. I've tabled such a question again a couple of days ago. We'll see what the answer is going to be this time. We're not going to let off, and I believe it will be necessary over time to just try and get into the regular functioning of our support mechanisms. We have, for instance, the partnership agreement between Artsakh State University and the University of Louvain-la-Neuve, which has never been filled with life. I consider it absolutely conceivable that this is not a political matter, but this is an academic matter where the 2 partners would have to try and avail themselves of existing European support means, funds, for instance, in order to strengthen this partnership in concrete terms. I do not imagine that if they tried to avail themselves of such possibilities, that would be refused. If it were refused, we would comment on it, and not in a positive manner. I will also see, together with colleagues, the Special Representative for the South Caucasus soon, in order to discuss with him what possibilities he sees for concrete steps on the ground, among which would, of course, figure relatively prominently a first visit to the territory. But we'll see where we can go. And then it is absolutely clear that, to me, we cannot eternally stand by the so-called Minsk process and take that as an excuse not to otherwise engage with the Republic of Artsakh. But you have to understand that so far it's also been the wish of the Republic of Artsakh and of the Republic of Armenia, not to even mention the Republic of Azerbaijan, that remains so, because the format of engagement has been the Minsk Group and only the Minsk Group, which of course has one co-chair, which is a European country, but that seems not to really be the most convincing thing. I would wish that we would find our own role in the region in a much more consistent and coherent manner, because there will be much to be done. I could, for instance, imagine, and I've said so also publicly, that the European Union decides to confront Azerbaijan with a simple choice: either it accepts the ceasefire monitoring mechanism, or it's out of the Eastern Partnership. Because we cannot continue as if nothing happened, to engage as if normally with a country that at weekly intervals, fortnightly intervals, monthly intervals attacks its neighbor in a military manner and pretends to be a normal neighbor. This is not conceivable. And even if we do not pretend to substitute ourselves for anything, and even if we let the Minsk Group run its course, it's been the request of the Armenian side that the ceasefire be monitored by the OECD, and the Azerbaijani side has said we will not accept this. But if they don't accept this, then let that have consequences for the engagement of the European Union with Azerbaijan as well. I'm relatively convinced that we can draw our energy from elsewhere. If the Ombudsman says so, I tend to collude that we conclude. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.